Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Egberto Will is your host. Thank you so kindly for being here. Well, folks, Paul Fleming, your book is fire. Thank you so kindly for those kudos, Paul. Thank you so kindly for those kudos. Folks, see, one of our great supporters bought the book. He received it. He thinks it's on fire. Thank you, brother. That touches the heart. Jacoby G, welcome aboard. Here we go, amigos and amigas. Estás hablando español, mi amigo, mi amigo, mi amigo, mi amigo, mi amigo, mi amigo, mi amigo. Anyhow, how are you guys doing today? Rafael Coyle, mend it while eliminating racism and white supremacy. Yes, sir. Bridge MCP, hey. That's what she says. Hey, you go, girl. How you doing, my dear, beautiful Bridge? Paul Fleming, welcome aboard. Folks, we are going to have a great show today, but I want to start with a thought that just hit me today, and I wrote it up real quick and threw it on my page, not my page, but my wall on Facebook, and I want to read it to you. And then I want to hear some of your thoughts, and then we'll get into the program. But I want your thoughts on this. Here's what I said. It went like this. The last 8 electoral college wins were Clinton, a Democrat, Clinton, a Democrat, Bush, a Republican, Bush, a Republican, Obama, a Democrat, Obama, a Democrat, Trump, a Republican, Biden, a Democrat. Democrats won the popular vote 7 out of those 8 times by millions of votes. Twice the Republican became president while losing the popular vote by substantial margins. During the Bush first popular vote loss, Republican operatives exhibited mob-like behavior. Now, somebody answered and said, Eric Echeverria said, mob-like behavior? From the past 11 months, the insane left burned down cities, looted like an invading army, beat the elderly half to death, terrorized innocent families in their homes, churches, and restaurants. They pulled innocent victims out of cars and then blooded. Get real, man. Get real, man. All those things that Echeverria just said there happened. But guess who perpetrated those acts? Mobs. The clown boys or whatever they're called, many of them trying to make believe they were on the left. These are all proven. You can find it out. You can see all the people who have been arrested in our little riots that have occurred this year. However, we have the videos of people banging down those election officials in 2000, attempting to break into where the votes were counted until the Supreme Court stopped the count. And here again, we had the attempted kidnapping of the governor of Michigan. We had people attacking the House in Michigan. We had people all over the country talking about using their second rights, Second Amendment rights. So no, I continue. During the Bush first popular vote loss, Republican operatives exhibited mob-like behavior. And I want to be clear here. I am calling out Republican operatives and violent Republicans. I have a lot of Republican friends. I have Republican relatives. All of them are very sad that they lost. But they are also not intent on creating violence or doing anything wrong. But the people who lead them are horrendous. They're anti-democratic. They're autocrats. During Trump's second popular vote loss, remember, Trump has never, ever won the popular vote. We've had a president and now a wannabe president again that has never, ever won the popular vote. During Trump's second popular vote loss, mob-like behavior escalated to violent threats via threats of kidnapping and murder. Even Republican elected officials were part of the cabal. 126 plus Congress people decided that they were going to support, they wanted to support the violence that Donald Trump represents. Imagine that. Elected officials were willing to have autocratic rule, treasonous rule, anti-democratic, against the will of the people. Elected officials were willing to do that. We will never be the same again. We should never be the same again. We should never allow those who attempted to throw the votes of Americans out to not remember what they did and never again allowed to serve in Congress again. We must keep the names of every single congressperson who went ahead and said, I support that, and make sure they are never, ever elected again. Remember those names. Remember those names. 2022. Remember those names. The ones who have the right to be upset are the Democrats who, because of an undemocratic constitutional aberration, the Electoral College has made the vote of some more valuable than others. In other words, you live in a rural place, land owning. I mean, it sounds like slavery days, don't it? Don't it? It sounds that way, don't it? Big landowners, low amount of people. Somehow, their vote is worth more. California, 40 million people have 2 senators. Dakota, I don't remember which one, less than 1 million people, has 2 senators. We are such an anti-democratic country. They have more representation than we do, than those who says we want what we've given. Yet we have those, a small amount with that much coverage. So that constitutional aberration has got to change. If this is not fixed, the country as the Democratic Republic will not last much longer. America is less democratic than most democracies around the world. An exceptional America? An exceptional America? Saying so does not make it so. Saying so does not make it so. And we must remember that. Okay, so what is our program going to be about today? What is our program about today? Today, the title of the show is J. Christopher Collins discusses mending our union, Trump's electoral fraud. J. Christopher Collins visit to discuss how do we mend our deteriorating union, and Trump's 2020 electoral fraud has failed as it should have. And as they're counting the electoral votes right now, all the problem states have already certified their electoral votes, their electoral count, and today they have made it official. So therefore, Donald Trump has no recourse any longer, not that he ever did, but he has no recourse to try to steal this election. None whatsoever. Donald Trump is a loser. He has always been a loser. Everything that he has touched has failed. Every company that he has had has gone bankrupt, and he was in the process of bankrupting this country. Now, tomorrow we'll talk about him bankrupting the countries. I'll play some pieces by Fareed Zakaria and a few others that show that Donald Trump has always been nothing but a fraud. Nothing but a fraud. If we take a look at all the different metrics to determine what an economy under Donald Trump has done, it is clear that he ran America like he ran his companies into the ground. Make no mistake about it. And the people that he has hurt the most are the people who love him the most, because they believe in the caricature that he has made of others, and they believe in the theories that he has put out as far as this economy, when it has been nothing but a categorical failure. So let's remember that. And this is not an attack on our Republican brothers and sisters. This is an attack on our Republican leadership who knows better, who knows the truth. Don't let that ever get out. Don't ever allow them to continue the fraud that somehow this guy's administration has been anything but an utter disaster for the United States of America and what we represent in the rest of the world. But to start, let me go ahead and I want to play a piece here by the woman in Florida, Rebecca, who, using Gestapo tactics, they broke into her home. The police broke into her home after a perceived false, what should I call it, a computer attack. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Rebecca, one of the things that struck me about that NPR interview was how both of the individuals that were whistleblowers as well were women. And one cited the fact that women and individuals of color who are scientists fighting this pandemic, trying to bring research forward, were having a really tough time. And she said that it had a lot to do with how science is oftentimes related to and spoken by men. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I've unfortunately personally experienced a lot of misogyny in the last 7 months since leaving the state. And the debate over what a scientist is came out, and then whether or not, you could be a scientist and look the way that I do or talk the way that I do. And that seems to be directed almost entirely at women. Right now, we're in this entire debate over a very sexist piece in Wall Street Journal that said that people without medical doctor degrees shouldn't refer to themselves as doctor. And that was directed specifically at Dr. Jill Biden, our soon-to-be First Lady. So it's something absolutely that I've dealt with. DeSantis at a forum, Governor DeSantis, at a forum for trying to get rid of the stigma of mental health this week, actually used the term "she's got issues," referring to me. So there is a absolutely coordinated effort to just dismiss women in any instance that they speak out to make them seem irrational or overly emotional or reactionary. And it's really an unfortunate thing. And I'd also like to point out that I fully believe that if I didn't look the way that I do and I wasn't white, that the situation with the police in my house could have easily gone very, very differently. That is a point of privilege that I have.
Yeah, what is pathetic is that the Journal actually posted that article. How do you post an article that somehow, as I heard on another program today, have you ever heard anybody complain about Dr. Kissinger or Dr. any male? Why then will Jill Biden have to somehow not accept that she is a doctor, she is a PhD? Dr. Jill Biden is what it is. And how do they dare break into her home under the pretenses that they use? Makes absolutely no sense. But earlier we were talking about the behavior of the elected official that are there supporting Donald Trump, and I want you to listen to what Chris Hayes has to say, because Chris Hayes says something. How can we ever return to where we were before? We cannot. I think we have proven that the Republican Party is definitely an autocratic party. They have no desire for democracy. And for that reason, the leadership of the Republican Party, if not changed now, must never again hold elected office where they are in control. Check this out.
There's a real question about, I don't know how I guess we're all just going to pretend this didn't happen. Like, they tried to overturn an American election. They tried to install someone who lost into power. They conspired, essentially, to overturn the rightfully democratically elected government of the United States. I'm not sure how you come back from that and, have a conversation tomorrow about the Defense Authorization Act.
Well, I think you're right. Look, it's like they're stabbing the body politic, but saying we're not aiming for vital organs. They're doing injury to the country as it is. Right now, they are creating a permanent set of aggrieved Americans who feel their election was stolen from them. That is lasting damage, whether they win or lose this lawsuit, whether they expected to lose it or not. These continuing false claims about the election, this continuing fallacy that somehow millions voted improperly, this nonsense, the more that they echo this, the more it sinks in with a large segment of our neighbors and friends. It's already difficult enough for us to talk with each other these days without poisoning the well further. So, I don't know how you look at some of these members the same way when you have seen them for what they are, and that is having no dedication to principle, nothing but ambition.
How can you ever look at them the same again? You don't. You cannot. You should not. You must not. They've shown what they really believe in. By the way, here's what Chuck Todd said. Let's hope they listen to Chuck Todd now. Check this out. I'll be honest. I had to do a double take on this one. But you know what, Chuck Todd? Kudos, brother. I mean, there are a few things that I'd like to say otherwise, but kudos on at least the way you handle this particular senator, another enabler.
Any doubt who won the presidential election?
Shouldn't be after Monday. I mean, the states have counted, certified their votes. The courts have resolved the disputes. It looks very much like the electors will vote for Joe Biden. And when they do, I hope that he puts the country first. I mean, the president, that he takes pride in his considerable accomplishments, that he congratulates the president-elect and he helps him get off to a good start, especially in the middle of this pandemic. We need to not lose one day in the transition in getting the vaccine out to everybody who needs it.
You know, it's been 37 days since the election, 33 days since it was called, 6 days since we know that enough pledged electors have been certified for the election. And yet on Wednesday, President of the United States tweeted #overturn. Is it about time for this to stop?
Well, Monday it should stop. I mean, remember, it's not unprecedented to contest an election. Al Gore took 37 days, I believe, to contest before he finally conceded. And then he made the best speech of his life respecting the result, which is what I hope the president will do.
I don't understand the context, though, of trying to compare to this Al Gore. That was an incredibly close election. The only reason there's a perception that this was closer than some others is the order with which we counted the vote. So is the comparison to 2000 really fair, or is it creating a false straw man?
Well, it's not, you're exactly right. It's not the same circumstance, but I think it's fair to allow candidates to contest elections if they want to, if they have evidence. But when it's over, it needs to be over.
All right, I don't remember these same comments 4 years ago on Hillary Clinton should get more time and all of this stuff. I mean, do you see why it looks like a double standard?
Well, what about Stacey Abrams' concession speech? Have you found it yet?
I understand. Look, I understand that, but I guess, Senator, what I would say
that was 2 years ago, Chuck. She was defeated by more votes than governor. And why don't you say something about that if you're going to keep talking about Trump?
Look, I'm not here to talk about Stacey Abrams. I'm not covering that race, and that's her decision. And I think that is something that she deserves to be asked. But the question I have is, this is how the Republican Party seems to define itself in the Trump era, which is anything the president does that is unseemly, breaks a norm, instead of criticizing. You just say, well, what about? It's whataboutism. What about this? That doesn't dismiss the president's behavior, does it?
But I would think if you're going to talk about Donald Trump all the time, you might mention Stacey Abrams once. I mean, after all, Georgia is where the Senate races are.
It is something I've mentioned a handful of times.
It has been.
I'm not here to debate that.
Her. Well, why aren't you? Why aren't you? Well, I have consistently said that if the president loses, and it appears that he will, when the electors vote, he should put the country first, take pride in his accomplishments, congratulate Joe Biden, and help him off to a good start, especially because of the vaccine. I think that's a very proper way to think about that.
That was Chuck Todd. The one thing that I think he missed is when they tried to do the false equivalence between Stacey Abrams and Donald Trump. We should have said Donald Trump was talking about voter fraud. Stacey Abrams was talking about voter suppression that we visibly saw, that we could see on TV, that we could see wide open, that we could see everywhere. Voter fraud and voter suppression, two distinct things. Voter suppression is what lost her the election, and she wanted and needed to make that clear. Chuck Todd, you did a great job in pushing back. But next time, also come and defend the reality, the truth about Stacey Abrams. Absolutely. So you've got to defend. You can't leave anything up into the ethos, because as you can see, the right-wing media machine have a way of turning these things against you. You have to be. You notice how they were ready, how Lamar Alexander was ready to create that false equivalence. That is what we have to solve. Those are the things that we have to work against. Now, Governor Christie gets it. Governor Christie was a sycophant. Governor Christie was an enabler, because I guess he expected Donald Trump to win and get something out of him. Well, losers, some people jump off the losing train early. Some it takes a while because they think you have on some sort of a innate power. Well, Donald Trump's power is going to fall. Everybody talk about Trumpism. There's nothing I talk about Trumpism too, but let's be clear. Trumpism is just what Republicanism had become as the right wing, the moral majority, and all these guys took over the Republican Party. All Donald Trump did was put a honest face onto it. So in a lot of ways, Donald Trump is an honest guy who allowed us to see what the Republican leadership really looks like, what those in Republican control looks like. Those who don't know that are fooled by the Republican Party, and those are the people that we must have empathy towards. But the leadership, we must take them down. But check this out. Well, former governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie, seemed like his days of sycophancy, his days of being a Trump enabler are probably completely over now. Listen to this, and then let's take it on the other side.
This case, what's your message to the Republicans?
Well, listen, the legal theory put forward by his legal team and by the president is an absurdity. And the reason why the Supreme Court didn't take it is because it's an absurd idea to think that any state or any number of states, no matter how good they are, can challenge another state's right to run the election as they see fit. And also, there's no evidence, as I've been saying since election night. Show us the evidence. And what's gotten even worse, though, Martha, I think, is the attacks by the president on good, hardworking, decent Republican governors. And you've seen his attitude towards these folks change. And let's think about why. Back in September, he said about Doug Ducey, Doug is tough, Doug is strong, Doug is a good governor, the Arizona governor. He said about Brian Kemp back in the summer, that Brian is a capable man, he knows what he's doing, and he's done a very good job as governor. Now, after the election is over and he lost Arizona and Georgia, he says they're rhinos that are working harder against him. He's calling them corrupt. And also telling people things that aren't true.
So Chris, what happens to your
he's
party?
Talking about signature verification. Listen, Martha's going to people are going to have to stand up and start to say these things. I mean, the fact is in Georgia, and people should know this, that signature verification, which the president continues to tweet about, has been done twice in this election. And so the reason the Supreme Court is not taking this is not because of a lack of courage. It's for the same reason that every court has thrown this out. It's a lack of evidence and a lack of any type of legal theory that makes any sense. And the worst part, though, is attacking these guys like Brian Kemp, Doug Ducey, and others who are following the Constitution and executing the oath that they took.
A lack of evidence and a lack of any legal theory that makes any sense. He's a lawyer. He should know, right? Well, the other thing about it is, why did it take so damn long for people who would otherwise have been respected, had people heard it out of their mouths? Why did it take so long to say that? Then, of course, we shouldn't be surprised. After all, don't we have north of 126 Republicans who actually supported Donald Trump's try at the Supreme Court to overturn the election in 4 swing states? That is anti-democratic. These guys, whether they change now or had never changed, these guys are really they are really a danger to the democracy in our country. So good for you, Christie, for coming out. Good for you for no longer being a sycophant. Good for you for no longer being an enabler. but the damage has already been done. Yes, the damage has already been done. So anyhow, before we go to our interview, real quickly, we're at the halfway mark. This is the time where I tell you, see that book that you see on the screen? Please go ahead and get that book. By getting that book, you're helping us out. By getting that book, you are helping us out to keep this program online. Anyhow, I just put the link inside of the link, the Amazon link. And by the way, folks, Paul just said he got the book and he's loving the book. Why don't you get it too? Yes, I am pushing the book. I got to push the book because two things. I want you to learn a lot of the stuff in the book. I want you to critique some of the stuff in the book. And that helps us keep this program on. If you don't want to buy the book at Amazon, you can buy the book directly from us, from our store, which takes out the middleman. I shipped about 5 of them today. Go ahead and get it at politicsdoneright.com/store. Again, that is politicsdoneright.com/store. You can get our books, all that good stuff. And you know what? You can also get our new t-shirts and hoodies there. We actually released a new one. I wasn't prepared to do this, but let me go ahead and do it anyway. If you take a look at, we have some new hoodies out. Check this out. Let me see if it will come up on the screen. It will come up on the screen. Check that one out. That one says, para ver. It is called I am a progressive with our logo on it. Check that one out. It's a good one. We also have the new one that comes out there. I'm a progressive. And the other one that comes out, I'm a progressive. And you can get those in all kinds of colors. So, whoops, I'm putting it on the screen and not even having it on the screen. Anyway, there you go. Those are the new ones. You can either get it at the store, my store, or you can get it at the right here at Teesprings. So there is one version, there's another version, and there's another version. Anyhow, let's see. So if you go to my wall, my personal wall, you can get the links to them. And there's another version. I think this one is at my store that you can get them. Oh, you love them, Brige. Great. I'm glad that you love them. Anyhow, the other thing, folks, is if you're on YouTube, click join. And if you join our YouTube, we'll see that you've just joined and we'll salute you. It's worth it. You help support the movement. And if you go to, if you can either click join to join us or that $sign there to give us a super chat, whichever one. We love to have it. It helps us. The other point is Patreon. You can support us via Patreon. That is called. You can get to our Patreon by going to politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. Politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. Patreon is spelled Patreon. Politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. You can also support us via PayPal. Our PayPal is politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. Politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. You can still become a part of what Brige MCP calls the PDR Posse, the Politics Done Right Posse, on YouTube by just going to politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. So if you're not on YouTube, you can still get onto our YouTube posse by going to politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. And hey, Egberto, there is one more act to come from the Republican Party on January 6th. When the vote, but that act it required both houses of Congress. I mean, requires both the Congress and the Senate to agree. And since they won't agree, it's a wash. So January 6th, don't believe what they said. This stuff is over. Terminado. Finito. We won. Period. They won't be able to take it away, which they would love to be able to take it away. Brother, it is over. It is cooked. They've lost. Donald Trump is what again? A loser. And you know why we're kind of teasing him about being a loser? Because that is what he likes to do to people. Otherwise, I just say, oh, he didn't win the election, etc., etc., etc. No, Donald Trump is a loser. By the end of our program today, when we are done, California should be voting. And when California is done voting, everything would be terminado. 306 votes, and it's over. Donald Trump remains the loser that he is for the second time. Unfortunately, the first time we allowed him to sufficiently damage the country, which we have got to mitigate now. Okay, let's get busy with the interview. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies. As you know, we've been covering how we can actually get folks communicating in all corners. Well, today we have Chris Collins, who's the author of the new book, Mending Our Union, Healing Our Communities Through Courageous Conversation. He has spent the last several years facilitating meetings that bring together people from a vast selection of politics, races, genders, and class as a part of his conversation group at the Glide Memorial Church in San Francisco, Different Together, and has developed a toolkit for doing so. He offers 4 tips, and we're going to talk about all of that. Welcome to Politics Done Right. How are you doing today, Chris?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Before we even get started, I understand that you did a stint in Austin, Texas, my old stomping ground.
That's right. I lived there for 7 years. I went to St. Edward's University, and after graduating there, I worked in the Texas legislature for a couple of years before moving to New York City, actually.
Before we go, you remember Conan's Pizza?
Yes.
I loved those deep dish Chicago-style Conan's Pizza. That was my mainstay in Austin. And by the way, while I went to school out there at the University of Texas, I was a delivery driver for Tux Pizza on near St. Edwards, and I had a lot of deliveries to St. Edwards University. It's interesting.
There's lots of food in Austin that I miss.
There's a lot of food, and now they have the truck alley and all that good stuff there where you can go ahead and buy. Well, I don't know since COVID how things are, but anyhow, let's talk about your book. Well, before we talk about your book, tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I am a native Texan. I grew up in McKinney, Texas. My family's been in Texas for multiple generations. I got a calling in my early life in high school to become involved in public service in one way or another. I didn't really know what that looked like. And as you mentioned, I went to St. Edward's University and got involved with working in the Texas legislature. And I then went to New York University to get my master's in public administration and public policy. And I've over the years that it doesn't really matter what policies we advocate for, what politicians or presidents we vote for. The division in our country stops most of that from happening. Any policies that we want, any reforms that we want, division grinds most of that to a halt. So there's something bigger that we need to be working on.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. In fact, that was the genesis of my last book, which was about talking to the other side, how to talk. In my case, as a progressive, how can progressives talk to your right-wing relatives and friends or whatever? I mean, here I am, a left-wing progressive with relatives who've actually voted, well, not relatives, a couple of relatives who've actually supported Donald Trump. And it's like, I can't believe we grew up together and we're in such different spaces. That division is real. And I think it is, the division is real. The causation of the division, I think it's a fallacy. Your thoughts on that?
What do you mean when you say the thought,
let me give an example of, and this I put and I haven't read your entire book, so I don't know if you have something similar to this. But if you ask the average American citizen, what are their wants? What are their needs? It turns out that the similarity between wants and needs, absent certain social and religious issues, are virtually identical. Have you seen that in the research and the work that you've done?
Yes, absolutely. I think that that's beyond question that we all want the same thing. The division comes in how we get there. Mm-hmm. It's a debate of tactics and a desire to be we want our solutions to be the ones that fix it. We don't want someone else's solutions to fix it. There's a desire to want to be the victor in getting what we all want, rather than maybe a combination of solutions, or acknowledging the truth that maybe a different perspective might have some idea that might help us get there. It's a system of winners and losers, and it's not going to help us, and it's not helping us. I'm also a progressive, but I have to acknowledge that sometimes conservative thought has valid ideas that needs to be taken into consideration.
That is interesting because you could find those words in the things that we talk about here as well. And it's great to see that you have a book out there that's also centralizing on that type of messaging, which I think it is very, very important. Now, in that light, let's put a little bit of meat on those bones, because give me, if you will, some examples that you find we want the same thing, but the approach that we want to take to get there are different. Are both, from your point of view on whatever issue you choose, will those either side get you to the same place for real, or is it that one side is misinformed as far as being able to get there from that direction? Because my thing here, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. My thing is that I think we are purposely misled, because in our ignorance and fighting among each other, it's a profit for a certain sect. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that there's the system that's out there that that promotes a certain message, that is there is misinformation out there, and there are fake facts that are out there. And I think that where we make progress on this is tuning that out, to stop relying on what the politics are trying to tell us, and instead talk about it at the community level and find out what solutions we come up with whenever we tune out the toxic political discourse.
Now, tell our audience in specifics. Give me an example of where we can actually accomplish that.
So, what we do in Different Together, for example, let's talk about the impeachment that happened, which seems like a long time ago, is actually earlier this year.
Just a few months, yeah.
Right. We hosted a conversation between progressives and conservatives on the impeachment. And we split the topic up into digestible categories. So, for example, what are the facts of this situation that we all agree on? And different perspectives throw out different ideas. Where there was maybe a progressive person would make a statement that a conservative does not agree with, we would then put that into a different category and write it on our whiteboard. Okay, this is what we don't agree on. This is what we would need to further investigate in order to figure out where we are on this. Then we can have a category for what are the values? What do we want? What do we expect of our elected officials? Put that in a category. What do we agree on that we should expect from people? So whenever we parse a difficult topic out, it begins to breathe life into the conversation about it. It did not turn into a debate over Trump is a criminal, no, he's not a criminal, and just that leads us nowhere. That's the same thing we can turn on any cable news station and fulfill that. We're trying to have a different conversation to try to find where our conversations are breaking down and get past that, go past beyond where the conversations break down.
Now that is admirable, right? We have some. There's a professor that I work with here at Lone Star College, and he works with the Kettering Foundation on having these. There's deliberate debate, deliberative debates, I think it's called, where we do something similar to what you've just said, and it works. The problem that we find is that the people that are able to go to these things are people that are put together. They don't have to take care of their kids, all of that, and we can bring those people in together. What kind of, and I don't know if you explained that in your book, when you talk about communities through courageous conversations, how can we have courageous conversations in communities that don't have the wherewithal to come to a church where we have some snacks for them to do these types of debates? What do you foresee as a way that we can actually have these types of dialogues among the majority of the voters, to put it bluntly?
Thank you for bringing that up, because I can say that participation in Different Together, as well as the nationwide movement of bridge building, are people like me, middle class white people. That demographic alone is not going to heal this country. This is something that we have to be inclusive beyond race, beyond class, beyond religion, beyond socioeconomic status. So how do we have those conversations when whenever the availability to come to meetings is not necessarily the same across all of these different demographics? And the way that I see it is, and that whenever we have a Different Together meeting and an event, that's just a laboratory. It's a place for us to practice. It's not necessarily where community healing happens. It can, but that I don't want us to think that us showing up to this meeting occasionally is going to heal it. It's us to come together and practice, and then go back out into our worlds, into our workplaces, into our families, walking down the sidewalk. How do we heal the division at that point? Are we dismissive of people? Do we ignore need and hurt and pain in our communities? Or do we engage with it? Do we open our hearts? Do we want to listen? And that is where we have the power to be healers in our communities, is in our everyday life.
Are you saying then that your groups pretty much are disciple makers with the expectation that they will go out into the communities and replicate themselves?
I think that people that attend these types of meetings, yes, they are better equipped to go out and to live in this world with a softened heart.
Let's you brought up religion, race, etc. Let's go to Appalachia, okay, where I think at this point in our history, I feel that these are the most scared people that have not had much good happen to them, and they see a whole lot of the rest of America talking about inclusivity and going and supporting the aggrieved. Um, how do you talk to these folks to let them know that nobody, in my opinion, is taking something from them? There, you can't take something one has never had. How do you get into those communities? Because I think what's going on in America today, I think there are a lot of undertones. And tell me if you agree with this or not. I think there are a lot of undertones that are masked by other issues. And I think one of the big undertone in America, and you hear progressives talk a lot about it, race, religion, that sort of a thing. But I do think it plays a part. And if you take a look at the demographics of even the last election, you sort of see that. How do we get to those who believe? Because I think it has to start somewhere. How do you get to those who believe that if you get something, it means my loss? I've lost something that I hold dear.
Right. I think that we do see many times this as a zero-sum game. I think that it's a matter of reassessing what progress looks like. There is so much mistrust in the system, especially with the people that you describe. So what does progress look like if it is to help them see that we are not out to get them?
Right.
Well, that might be a difficult task to accomplish in the next couple of years.
Can I interrupt you for a quick second, because I want to give you some kudos first of all. Important kudos. I think you are in a position to do that so much better than many others. And remember that I said that. Please continue, and then I'm going to pick that up on afterwards.
Okay. So I think that we've got to see this as a long-term process and a long-term solution. For right now, we are so divided and there's so much mistrust in our country that I think that we have to think about what is just enough. What's just enough for us to release our grip and for there to be more trust. So for right now, I think that might just be to listen and listen to things that we strongly disagree with and think are factually way out there. I think that begins to lower the temperature and to build trust. And how long we have to do that, I don't know. But that, I believe, is the path forward. And once we begin to establish trust, then we can have a more factual debate.
Okay, and I agree with that. I want to add a little bit more, and because as a white guy from Texas with a Texas history, I think more so than many, a lot of guys like that can actually go into these areas and do a hell of a lot of listening with some talking. And believe it or not, I think a lot of times that may be where we fail. And I think that is where we've allowed cancers to grow. By those who have that opportunity to, I don't want to say set the record straight, because that goes against the tenet of doing more listening than talking, but being able to show that maybe there are other ways to look at things. And that's why I say, I think guys like you who are doing this kind of work in certain areas, not in San Francisco, but in Appalachia, you would make a hell of a lot of difference.
Well, and I would also clarify that I try to make clear in the book that I'm not asking Black people, people of color, marginalized people to do this work. I believe it's me and people who are like me, other middle-class white guys, to take this on, to be the ones that are listening. From talking with people who are in marginalized communities, they tell me they've been doing this for their whole lives, but the problem is that people aren't listening. People are being dismissive. So in order to listen to these, to the pain that's in our community, we have to really open our heart and be open to hear some realities that me in my life I've never had to deal with, and I have to then struggle with how do I live with that? How do I take the privilege that I have in my life and squeeze everything out of it in order to help heal all of these divisions, including racism and classism?
You know what is interesting? And I wish to that everybody that said that had the understanding also that you just said. Actually, I loved hearing when you said it's not a zero-sum gain, that the growth of all comes with this unification, if you will. The growth of all comes with all of us being able to be a part of what America's dream is. So let me ask you, because I want to do this right. For the people that, first of all, folks need to get books that do the kind of work that you're talking about, books that aren't there to divide. in a short synopsis, what is your book about? What do you want to come out of your book from those who read the book and those who pass it along?
So when I was starting the Different Together project at Glide Memorial Church, I was looking for a book that could give me a guide about what I was about to encounter. And what I have written is that book, a book for people that are concerned about division, want to do something, but don't necessarily know what to do. I believe that the book is a guide that has relevant stories based on the front line of this domestic peace building movement, and I try to reveal what it is like to do this, and let the readers know that this is not easy work. That whenever I hear statements of, well, if we all agree on the same, we all believe in the same thing, so if we just listen, everything will be okay. It's much, much more complicated than that. There are mental and spiritual roadblocks set up all along this path. And what I try to help facilitate with the readers is that whenever we get to the point of wanting to give up, where a conversation gets tense, where we feel like we don't have the qualifications to do this work, that is exactly the time whenever we need to double down and keep going. Because it's difficult work, it's going to get complicated, and it's going to get hard. So I want to use my story and my experience to help people realize that I started this thing. I'm not uniquely qualified for it, but I learned over the course of time, and I just try to share what I've learned to help bring more people into this movement.
Excellent. Chris, what would you have liked me to ask you that I didn't ask you?
I thought your questions were excellent, but nothing comes to mind.
Well, look, let me tell you, first of all, I want to thank you for the excellent work that you're doing beyond your book. Thank you for writing that book that is actually there sort of as an instruction set. I think it is important work that needs to be done, and we need a whole lot of folk out there doing it. So thank you for being who you are, and thank you for having been on Politics Done Right.
Thank you so much.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. Hey, Paul Fleming. Man, you keep giving me kudos. Paul says, I am amazed today. After I voted, I went upstairs to renew my tag on my vehicles. A gentleman with the Trump hat on struck up a conversation with me. It started out about football, but ended in a good conversation about the election. He was okay with Biden being president. Reading It's Worth It gave a great assist. Thank you, my brother. Thank you. Hey, let me salute everybody that's here. Brige MCP, welcome aboard. Michael Rudnin, welcome aboard. Pixie Dust, welcome aboard. Candy, welcome aboard. Let's see what else is here. BH Toxic YT, welcome aboard. Who am I missing here? Quite a few. Daniel Ledo, welcome aboard. Lee Grant, welcome aboard. Lee, I want to sit down and when this pandemic is over, you and I are going to go and have a cup of coffee. I think you're in Houston, right? We'll have a cup of coffee. Let's see. Let's see who else is here. Who else is here? Paul Fleming, I called you out. Let's see. Lee Grant, I think I got you. Yeah, I just said we'll have coffee, Lee Grant. Daniel Ledo, I called you out. Para ver. ¿Quién estoy olvidando? Norman Reynolds, my brother. How you doing, sir? Anzu Wiley, welcome aboard. Okay, I'm scrolling down, or scrolling up, I should say. And if I miss you, please go ahead and throw your name back in so that I can call you. Deborah John, welcome aboard, Deborah. Yeah, I read the thing that you put there after all, Deborah. I went ahead and read it. Deb Denny, welcome aboard, Deb Denny. Welcome aboard. Mark Smith from England, welcome aboard. Tank 28, welcome aboard. Mark Smith, welcome aboard. Coming in. I'm going up. I'm almost to the top, I think, I hope. Deborah John, I think I called you out. Paul Fleming, I think I called you out. Norman, let's see who else is up here. I'm going to go back down. Jacoby G, welcome aboard. Rafael Coyle, welcome aboard. I'm going back down to the bottom, see if anybody else I need to salute. Okay, Jacoby, mucho gracias, CW, con cuidado. Good show again. Thank you, my brother. Matt Thames, thank you for being here. And let's see, Paul, I think Paul says, what needs to be done is to go into the poor white communities, see what their needs are, which are the same of most, and explain all the good that would come from looking at how their votes keep them in the same place. You know, that is a hard thing to do, and that is what, to be honest, I've been working a lot on that. Ashley Mosley, gotta come get your Creo. Yes, I do need to come and get my Creo done. You know, after all this stuff is over, I'm coming out. I know I should be able to come before that, but hey, I've been so busy with all this stuff. Ashley, thank you for being here. Miss seeing you. Let's see who else is here. Who else is here? Anyhow, folks, I hope you enjoyed the program. I got to get out of here. I have several more interviews that I have to get into the queue, but I want to just say this to both our conservative or right-wing listeners and otherwise. When you see me address you, when we talk here, I honestly, genuinely have no human animosity towards you. I really don't. I can't, if I believe the things that I believe, which I do, if I believe that we are being manipulated by a few to keep us all apart, then at the same time, it is impossible for me to look at those, even those who tear me to threads when they talk to me, and somehow look at that and say, I hate you because you hate me. I can't do that. It is incompatible with what I believe. So let me just be clear. Whether you like me or not, whether you like this program or not, keep coming back over and over again. Because at some point in time, it is my real belief that we're going to have some sort of an intersectionality. Not that you're going to believe everything I believe or vice versa, but that at some point in time, you're going to say, you know what, I disagree with you, but I can live with that because I know deep inside of your heart, it isn't that you don't like, you're an evil person or somewhat. Now, I tell you what, though, those people at the top, those people that are creating these issues, they are, in fact, evil. And those are the ones that I want to get at. Not the average Republican, the average Democrat, the average middle-class America, the average poor person. They're not the problem. We are the peons in the game. And that's what I believe in. Folks, please consider getting my book. I'm putting the link back in there again. That is where you can get it at Amazon, or you can get it at our store by going to politicsdoneright.com/store. 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 Please consider becoming a patron. You can do that by going to politicsdoneright.com/Patreon, and I just placed that in there as well, politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. Please consider also supporting us via PayPal if you so choose. That is politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. Oh, wow, that let me do that again because it don't seem like it went through. And the Patreon didn't seem like it went through either. Anyway, let me do the Patreon again. So again, my name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out! We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.